Cam podcast. It's January 31st. Lisa is currently wrapped up in something, so you won't get to hear her beautiful, soft voice to mellow mine out, but she might pop on here in a little bit, so that's fun. But we do have Tony. Tony has been really blowing up online, just like Donald Trump's blowing up the whole country.
It's been an interesting 24 hours, so to say, and I have moments like this just because I'm on top of things, moment by moment, pretty much. But I think the one thing within the last 24 hours is, we set up that Spaces. I set up that Spaces and told you guys about it right before we had this crazy email drop. So I didn't even have any idea that it was going to be as insane as it was yesterday. So, my online engagement was, 2 million engagements over the last 24 hours on my X feed. And it's just been insane. Today, and we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I was going to bring it up. I did an experiment today to test the algorithms. And what I did was I did an all caps post saying arrest Trump, arrest everybody. I'm sure you saw it.
I did see that.
It's close to 200,000 views right now. I forget when I posted it late morning, but it attracted every single MAGA troll in the world. And it's and I spent the day actually kind of going back and forth with them because it was an algorithmic test. I wanted to see how that affects my view and my interactions on X, because we know the algorithms are suppressing the resistors. Since
Absolutely.
I was able to draw in a lot of the MAGA crowd, and I mocked. They would come in. They did the typical mocking. I mean, I've dealt with them on Truth Social, so I knew how to easily handle them. And I would only deal with the ones that were high value accounts, like high profile accounts. And often I would thank them. I'm like, thank you for your shout out for calling me a libtard, because now I have your whole entire following as my audience, of 20,000 people. And, if they're interested in truth, go ahead and check out my pinned profile. So I've gotten a lot of weird things, dings on my pinned profile today from that too. So we'll see kind of how it fleshes out over the next couple of days, but it was definitely an interesting experiment. I mean, I literally set the trap for them. I mean, when I wrote that text, I did it knowing that was going to happen today. I'm bored. I'm still 10 days after knee surgery. Why not spend a day fucking around with, my language, with the MAGA trolls?
Well, speaking of messing with the algorithm and figuring out sneaky ways to plant a seed with the people who they remind me of what's the movie with Sandra Bullock where she has the handkerchief over her eyes?
That bird, is it a bird one or the
I can't remember, but the movie. And where she has is it Don't Look? Or
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's literally anytime someone wants to send me something really stupid in a text message, that is what they get back. I'm like, how can you not see evidence? ? Evidence. And I'm like, I literally just sent you like the fucking files where they told on themselves. It was from them. They're like, that's not evidence. And I'm like, do you need to see the child porn? Like, is that what you're asking for? I just don't know. What is evidence? You want to see the video, you nasty fucker? But where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. Messing with the algorithm. So there are a lot of people that I follow just because you keep your enemies closer. You just got to see what they're doing. And when they type things or I see their posts, I've just been posting photos of pictures of the files. Okay. With and their whole following gets to see that.
Yes, and absolutely, and that's the way, I've been doing this for a while, so, that's the way we fight back. I mean, this is an electronic information war that we're in, and, when you're on Twitter, especially, people are like, why are you still there? Jump to Blue Sky where the skies are blue. We're on the front line of the battle on Twitter. and that's where we need to be to get in front of these people, especially because so much MAGA is out there and they've taken control. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so we have to get their attention, and because a lot of what's coming out is undeniable fact. I think it all comes down to I mean, we talked about this right before, but like the Jared Kushner stuff, I've been screaming it. I've shown posts for months now. My current account is only back to August, but I've been talking about Jared being corrupt and Jared doing a lot of bad things for years. And even 2 months ago, I finally put two and two together, and I said, "Ding." Jared took over the Epstein operation. I think I probably mentioned that on a previous call we had. And
Well,
now we've got this letter in this from the FBI, and let's be clear about that letter. Rather than it being some of the other stuff that's been released, which is unconfirmed or reports and with sources that aren't quite as reliable, and we understand that it's very sensational. Some of the stuff is very sensational. The Jared letter was from a confirmed FBI source, which is much different than these unconfirmed sources. And if you read that letter, and it talks about very specifically what Jared's connections to Israel, what he was doing to basically be a shadow president for Trump, for Israel, basically guiding Trump and everything. And you don't have to be a stable genius to look at what's happening right now. He was just in talks in Moscow, sitting at the table with Putin as a non-White House, affiliated advisor, and then he's in Ukraine. I mean, it's obvious his ties to MBS. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein was close to MBS. MBS sent Epstein an entire tent, like an Arabian tent, as a gift. It's in one of the older emails. He sent an entire Arabian tent to Epstein, after I think the 2016 election when Epstein was in Riyadh that evening.
yes.
And Jeffrey Epstein kind of jokes about it, and it's interesting. I found one thing, and I'm sorry, and I'll stop ranting, but in that specific email, and I found a couple others, it's obvious Epstein is a total racist. I mean, he uses a derogatory term towards Mexicans in that specific string of
Mm-hmm.
emails. And there's a couple of emails where you get these intonations of this clear racism towards other races, especially the darker races, which again ties right into everything we're dealing with.
Okay, so for anybody who isn't aware, what was it, not yesterday, but the day before? Yeah, so yesterday morning at like 1 a.m., didn't they dropped like 3 million, or was it 2 days ago? 2 days ago?
No, it's yesterday. It just
Okay.
seems like it was
I
years
know.
ago.
Jesus Christ. So the DOJ, like, randomly, well, it's not really randomly because they were supposed to release these files 40 days ago after Donald Trump signed a bill saying he would release them. They waited 40 days because they had to have all the FBI agents to redact everything. And now they dropped 3 million files. And then Todd Blanche comes out, Trump's lawyer, and is like, or I guess he's the DOJ lawyer. My bad. I don't. He's Trump's
Trump's
lawyer.
lawyer.
So he comes out and speaks to the press, and he's like, "There are 6 million files and pieces of evidence or whatever, but we overgathered evidence. We overgathered it. So really, there's only 3 million, and that's all you're going to get. And that's what we just released. So don't ask for more. I don't know why you want it. And if someone was supposed to get in trouble, they would have." And so then we're like reading these motherfucking files, and it's like, no, what did you redact for one? What did we pay for overtime for? Because all I see is victims' names and then the predators redacted, some weird ass chicken fuckery pictures, like child, literally naked children. So I don't know what they were redacting,
Well,
and ugh.
well, no, and you're absolutely right. The thing is, it's obviously a long game for them where they're just suppressing information as they continue. They're trying to, draw this process out as long as they can, as they continue to put things in place to strengthen their capacity as a tyrannical regime. I mean, we've seen that. That's clear. ICE is buying warehouses all over the place. It's
Ugh.
not, It's not. I mean, it's insane. We know that they're going after Americans, and they're putting things in place. In this new Save Act, they want 75 more million budget for ICE right now, or billion, 75 billion more for ICE right now. ICE is more better funded than the majority of nations'
I
militaries in the
know, I
world.
know, I know
And
that.
and and why there's
Well,
not.
why are we paying to have an army against us?
Yeah.
Like, we're literally paying to have people wage a war against us in our fucking streets.
Absolutely. And I think, with the experiment I told you I did earlier today with MAGA, I think, one of the main reasons I spent the entire day arguing with MAGA, which I usually don't do because it's just not worth the effort, is because I wanted to see where they stood on this information as it was coming out. And they really have there's no coordinated talking points. Over the next few days, I guarantee we will see a
That's
narrative.
very interesting
Yeah.
because all I purposely, when I saw those, sent screenshots out to my people that are like, he ain't in there. And I'm like, no, dude, he is the whole list. What are you talking about? And
Mhm.
so I sent them this, and they're like, what does it say? I don't want to read through it. That's what one of them said. And then the other one, I mean, crickets,
Yeah.
crickets.
Well, and that's the thing is, and so I spent the day arguing with these people and clarifying, and I would only put the information out as best as I could that was undeniable, basic facts. Now, they would find any way to try to uh, divert or deflect the information that was in there by picking something simple out of the email that didn't quite make sense, and they'd hyperbolize that in a way that allowed them to create a narrative. But you could tell that they're kind of,
They're
just kind of
waiting for
flapping
their
their wings.
marching
They're
orders.
waiting
Like,
for their marching orders. Yeah.
yeah, when is our podcasters gonna tell us what to fucking say back to all these libs?
Yeah.
I
Well,
get pedophilia is fine. What are you talking about?
well, it's funny because the context of that tweet, that post today, was about arresting all of these high level people, and then including Eric and
Rage bait.
Ivanka. And again, it was rage baiting. I did it on purpose. It was because we know what they do, the same thing, and it was a test because we are doing what we can to make our world better. And I
Mhm.
wanted to figure out what their narrative was. And it was interesting because, like I said, they don't really have one. They were pulling out the same old stuff. But what was very interesting is at the bottom of the text, in all caps again, and people even complained to me about being, so childish for posting in all caps. So I would obviously share an all caps Trump post with them after they said that, because
Ugh.
their hypocrisy is palpable.
Oh
And
God.
but also at the bottom of that, I said, and everyone else uh, that is shown to be involved in the cover up and actions that have occurred. And so many of these MAGA still were like, why isn't Biden on the list? Why isn't Clinton on the list? And I'm like, does your MAGA Bible does not? What does your MAGA Bible tell me? Everyone else means. What does that your Bible tell you? Everyone else means, because they just want to still create a different narrative. And I'm like, I'll be clear. And I told many of them that would argue with me, feel free to go look at my account. I've been very clear about the fact that, and just like the majority of Democrats have, is if Bill Clinton did bad things and is proven to have done so,
Line them
lock,
up.
lock his fucking ass up
Yeah,
and do
like
whatever we want to do with the others with him. And there needs to be accountability, and we talked about this before, accountability for the cover up as well, because this is a decades long operation that multiple high level people throughout our government, going back to the 70s at least, have been very aware of. And
well
it's
it
not a
it
plausible yeah.
it
Go ahead.
almost seems like like almost like World War II never really ended. It just kind of went under.
Hmm.
And they just were like quiet about it. They're like,
Hmm.
oh, we're just actually doing all this shit and not telling anybody and just using your tax money to do it, but we're just doing it. You're a
Yep.
democracy, but you're really not. Fuck off.
But no, and I think that's the other thing that we need to kind of be very serious about is the fact that, if we are able to fix this, and that's just being honest, we
I
are very
know.
far into this disaster, this horror, and if we're able to come to some terms and correct this, we really have to reinvent our institutions. This is all systemic, and whatever it is, whoever's been involved, we have to root them out in a way, just kind of like, as much as, the McCarthy era was, this whole craziness and all of that. And that's also tied very directly to Trump and Roy Cohn and everything else. There will be a need for us as a nation to come together and determine what we need to do to hold everyone accountable and also to change the system that led us here. Um, because they've all been compromised and infested.
So, again, so you were talking to MAGA all day, and okay, a lot. Okay, so I walked around most of today dissociated. Like, and not even in like a just like how is this not what everybody's like trying to figure out in their brain, how to fix that the whole government is pedophiles, like our ruling class, like what the ruling class, the richest people in the world are literally raping and torturing children and trafficking them for money and fun and whatever weird shit, I don't know. And that's not the first, like I'm not gonna be able to do much besides get them out until it's done, you know?
Mm.
And
Well,
like I'm not okay with it.
and let me echo your statement. I mean, you're absolutely right. There are high profile worldwide entities at the highest levels that have been involved in criminal actions towards children that have been shared among the group, that have been running our governments, have been making deals for Americans, have been making decisions for our nation,
Running
but
the cartels that are
and not
bringing
with
the drugs that are killing
yes,
our neighbors.
yep, not with the interest of the American people at heart. And that's what everybody needs to realize: is put politics aside, put everything else aside. This really comes down to right versus wrong. And if you can't determine that, the difference between those two things, then you need a little bit of reprogramming. I hate to say it, but
You need a
you
new
know,
handler.
something's got to change.
Well, okay, so what I've been learning though is I'm walking around in this dissociated state and other people I see are like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, "Did you read the new Epstein papers?" And they're like, "Who's Jeffrey Epstein?" And I'm like, So and I don't know how to make people care. Like,
Well, that's the challenge. Is how do we make people care? And it comes down to the self. Is we have to help them self-identify in this. Is how is this eventually going to affect them? Unfortunately, most people are learn the hard way types.
it's
Is
so
they will
weird.
not expect it. You know me. I've said it from the beginning. I'm a plan for the worst and hope for the best type of guy, and
Mm-hmm.
my whole knee surgery is a testament to that. And
Yeah.
and but most people don't live like that. They're fly by the seat of their pants people. And I'm going to try to have a good time and not think about anything until it literally punches me in the face. And it's unfortunate because that's the world that we've been able to create. And I can say I saw this back when I was in the Navy in the 90s, the early 90s. We would travel the world, and this is when the world still loved America, you know, and we would come off the ship. I was on the Abraham Lincoln, which Lord pray to keep our soldiers and sailors safe right now. The Lincoln just entered the Persian Gulf yesterday as a part of with its fleet,
In
and
preparation for the Epstein file drop.
yes, absolutely. And it's funny. I saw a friend of mine just posted a little while ago on Facebook that uh, uh, they released the Epstein files as a distraction from the Melania movie.
Yes, I did. I saw that. Yes.
Anyway, when we would pull into these ports, and I went to, went around South America. We went to Rio, we went to Chile, and then we did a Westpac, and we went to Singapore and Philippines and a number of other places. We were rock stars. I mean, literally, we would go off the bases or wherever, and they treated Americans like rock stars. Like they loved us. Now, I guarantee that's not what it is right now. But what I saw was that is the arrogance of my fellow soldiers that didn't appreciate being in other nations and understand, try to learn their culture, appreciate what you're
Be
able to do,
respectful.
be respectful. I mean, yes, and that shocked me because I was like, "Ugh, why do we have to act this way?" And
Yeah, you're making me
and
feel
here,
embarrassed.
yeah,
Stop.
and here we are 30 years later, and here we are 30 years later.
Well, and that is a problem that I come across quite a bit when I have conversations with people talking about American exceptionalism, and I'm like, which part? You had nothing to do with that, sir, especially. But yeah, we've done some cool shit, but we've also done some terrible shit, and the fact that you don't want to bring that up or teach any of the generations of kids that are in public school, like, what are we doing? Or trying to rewrite history to make yourself look better. That's so embarrassing. How do you improve if you do that? And they're like, nope, we're the best. And I'm like, ew, I know. Feel bad for your wife. Gross.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we see that. I think everybody sees that in our daily lives. That's paying attention. The problem is not enough people are paying attention, and
Right.
you know, when when the shit really does hit the fan, which unfortunately it will, one way or the other, and it's not going to possibly bode well for even many of us, many people. Um, it's going to be quite an eye opener for everyone. I mean, we've mentioned it before, but an information and technology war, uh, you know, they could create a ton of chaos just by cutting off Wi-Fi and access to your cell phone and internet. I mean, literally anybody under a certain age will not know how to function, and they're so emotionally attached to
They will
TikTok.
be on the
Yes,
floor having
yes,
delirium tremors. I'm
yes,
serious. They act
yes.
like a toddler.
Yes. Yep. People will literally like have fits and will cry, and it will be insane because they won't know what to do. And then what do they do? Because then they don't know who to call because who, whose phone number do they call? Or whose phone number do they know off the top of their head? And if they can't get into their phone,
Yeah. No, you literally can't do anything. And another prepper tip. I know this is ADHD as hell, but everyone needs to get maps of their area, like foldable maps.
hmm
Just to prepare, just like have it. But sorry, I digress.
no, and I
Um
agree.
yeah.
Yep. I prepped a little, the same thing. And I've done it over the years, not anything insane, but like I have, walkie talkies that are 30-mile range, for family members and stuff. I
Mhm.
mean, that's just a simple thing you can do just to be ready if
We'll have a
communications go
plan.
out. Yeah, you have
And
just think ahead.
Well, and I've also actually reached out to several of my non-political friends. Love you guys. I know you're not listening, but they're moms, they're busy. I get it. This isn't their jam, but also like you have kids and the government is like sponsoring child trafficking now, so you better be careful. But I was like, one of them works in a hospital and she lives in St. Louis, and so I was like, "Hey, I heard ICE is in St. Louis. Are they at, the big hospital?" And she was like, "Oh my God, they're here. This is bad." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty bad. Have you thought of a plan of not what you would do if they were in the hospital trying to take your patient or anything? Because that's the kind of thing that I think about. Try, like,
The people that are there in the moment. And yes, it's not going to be pretty sometimes, but it's going to be worse if we let it continue the way it is
well,
continuing.
and that's what I tell people when they're like, I'm scared I can't come to this protest, or I'm scared I can't do this one thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm telling you right now, it is less scary than at any point in the future. Right now
Mm,
is more safe than any point in the future to do anything.
Hmm. But,
S-
and I mean, just, again, thinking ahead, I mean, I've needed my knees done for quite some time. The doctors have been telling me for years, you need to get your knees done. I pushed off 5 years, 5 years. I want to wait 5 more years, you know, and finally, just where we're at right now, the timing just was perfect, not ideal, but no time for something like this ever is.
right.
But I said, I have to get it done so I'm in the best shape possible when things get worse, period.
Yeah,
So I can
absolutely.
be as helpful in circumstances rather than a hamper in circumstances. So I can protect the people I love. And that's what each of us needs to do
I know,
is,
but a lot of people are not feeling that way, and it concerns me.
well, and that's where we go back to, it's going to get much, 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 much worse.
Well, and if we look at history, usually when these types of things start and the government starts being like this, really, really, really bad shit has to happen for enough people to pay attention to make it stop. Like really bad, bad shit. And really bad shit's happening right now. So I'm telling you, and no one, not no one, that was being dramatic, but I'd say probably 50% of people have zero education of what the fuck is going on right now.
Well, and that's where, I think it's important, and we talked about it at the beginning of this call, before we got on the call, was it's important to share verifiable, credible truth that's simple for people to understand so they can put pieces of the puzzle together in their head. I mean, that's been my goal for as long as you've known me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that people, eventually those wheels will turn. Those wheels will start turning, and they'll start to question things. And my goal in what I do in sharing verifiable, credible information, exposing these nefarious characters, is in hopes that at that moment where they're in a situation that things are going sideways, and if they have an opportunity to help, not hamper, they will finally, it'll click in their heads and they will help, or they at least won't participate in the bad things that are happening.
You're true. That's so true. That's so true. And I do think that, like, a lot of relationships right now, you're like, you're unsafe. I can't be around you. But as we cut people off, then they're not around anyone with empathy, normalcy, then they're in their echo chamber of sorts. And so every person is going to have to do what they're going to do regarding the relationships in their lives, or like all the women that are divorcing their Republican husbands right now. And like, I get it. I get it. I get it. But or men that are apolitical or just like not if we don't continue to work on them, none of them are, you know what I'm saying? Like,
They're going to
and
be
they
sucked
can
into, yes,
the red pill. So
yes.
you obviously have a relationship with these people with different beliefs for one reason or another. And if it is a fucking abusive relationship, get the fuck out. Like,
Mm.
I'm not saying don't. But I'm saying like some people just don't know, and it's too much. Like, I don't know, but we gotta just keep working on them because people can grow. We can't change people, but people can grow.
You're right. And I think that's the thing, is rather than abandoning people because of their beliefs or their misunderstanding or their complacency, we have to take every opportunity we can to guide them as best as we can, because we know them better than most anybody else.
Right.
And sharing the truth, and this is where I think we can talk about some of the information that came out so that people understand in the whole scheme of things what the simplest of truth is. And the
Yes.
simplest of truth is, for example, there's real from the file release, it showed that Donald Trump was in some sort of communication, and even it actually shows their likelihood that he was in personal contact, in person, with Jeffrey Epstein leading into the beginning of his presidency. That is an undeniable fact that we're finding from these emails. Now they can twist and turn all of that as much as they want to, but let's take that as fact very simply. Okay, because Trump was, as president of the United States, was still associating directly with Jeffrey Epstein while he'd spent the last several years telling all Americans, including his base, that he had no association with them since their Mar-a-Lago incident, which is all a lie in itself we don't need to go into. But simply, how are you going to believe anything Trump says going forward about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which we know he said himself for 15 years was a really great relationship? We know he said himself that Jeffrey Epstein liked him young.
Ugh.
And now we know that Donald Trump, as president of the United States, was still in direct contact with Jeffrey Epstein in one form or another. There's two instances where someone is emailing Jeffrey and said, I don't want to show up if Donald Trump is there. Well, this was in May of 2017. It was the same month that Trump fired Director Comey from the FBI. Okay?
Okay.
So here we have the month that all that's going on, and Trump finds time to possibly be at Epstein's home, according to people that are visiting Epstein's home. And this person was adamant about the fact that they didn't want to be there when Trump was there. So it's not just kind of like a one-off, like, hey, is Trump going to be there because you knew him 20 years ago?
Right.
It's a very clear if Trump's going to be there, I don't want to see him because I know myself that there's a good chance he could be there.
Right. Right.
And then there's the Mar-a-Lago Thanksgiving in later in the year of November 2017, where there's a list where Epstein is having a dialogue through email with another person about what they were doing for Thanksgiving. And Epstein mentioned he was going to be in Florida. And then the person asked, oh, who's going to be down there? And Epstein mentions, well, Glenn and Eva Dubin in one of the responses, who are listed on the flight logs going back 3 decades into the 90s. So we're very involved in all of this. Then we're talking again, November 2017, long into Trump's presidency. Yeah, whatever had happened leading up to that point. And then he also said in another response that Trump was going to be down there with him for his Thanksgiving. Well, yes, you can look, and I went and I looked on at the Mar-a-Lago page because I stalked the Instagrams, and I didn't see any. I tried to look in the background to see if I could see any pictures with Epstein there because Trump had his big Mar-a-Lago thing. And people will easily say, well, no, he was at Mar-a-Lago. But if you're like me, and I'd say the majority of people I know, because we all have different families, we all go to different events on Thanksgiving. We have to go to grandma's house first on this side of the family, and then we have to go to our sister's house and drop by for a little bit. And by the end of the day and our third meal, we're hitting that final place.
Right.
So yeah, he could have easily been at Mar-a-Lago Day, but it didn't say on his actual free relax time, which is outlined by Epstein himself in November 2017, that was spent with his closest friends for decades that also flew on Trump's plane. So that is the one simple fact that everybody needs to understand is Trump was in direct, immediate contact with Jeffrey Epstein as president of the United States while he had spent years and years and years lying to the American people as part of his con to gain the power that he gained and to get where we're at this moment. The next thing, and I have one more other example that I want to share with everybody. I'll let you make comments on that first.
Go, share it. You
Okay,
go.
the other thing is there's 2 specific emails that originally, when you look at them, obviously the two in front, they've obfuscated things by redacting certain portions of the email, so you don't know who the twos and froms are, but you can surmise that information just based off of the context of the email and even the names and the sign-on and the names. So there's an email that says, "Hi, G," and then it just talks about, like, hey, are you going to be in Florida? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, Jeffrey Epstein looked really good in that picture I saw of him recently. And then it's signed off, love, Melania. Okay.
Oh.
So the second email, which was separate from that original email, was the person's response to Melania. And the woman, because everything's redacted, on the top part said, responded in a way that she called Melania Sweet Pea and said
Ew.
something, light about
Yeah.
their conversation and whether she was going to be in Florida or not, and signed it off as Ghislaine Maxwell. So when you put two and two together, this is in, I forget what month in 2002, but literally Ghislaine and Melania Trump were friends. This was even before Trump and Melania were married. It was while they were dating. So, all those naysayers about, oh, that was just a picture at a party where everybody takes pictures with celebrities of Melania and Trump and Ghislaine and Epstein, which we've all seen all of those pictures. These aren't one-offs. We've all known they're not one-offs. It's obviously they're not one-offs. But now we have a document from Epstein's files himself, from Ghislaine's email herself, from Melania's email herself, showing their close friendship in 2002. And we all know that Trump was communicating and in direct contact with Epstein all the way into the beginning of his presidency, the first year of his presidency, including spending Thanksgiving together. That's simple enough that should make any person question everything that Trump has ever said about their relationship.
Well, it's just like he said that he was never on the plane, and then you get the flight logs. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, just come on. Well, speaking of people in photos, oh, Jeffrey Epstein's just photobombing everybody. We're just at a party. Okay, Elon Musk. Oh, I never went to the island. Jeffrey wanted me to go to the island, okay, but I said no. And then you get these freaking, just please hang out with me. Please let me hang with the cool kids at the island. I want to go to a wild party. Okay, talk about the Elon emails.
So, Elon is basically communicating with Jeffrey Epstein through email, which, again, should be quite the revelation that sets aside any doubt of all the lies that they've told about this. Okay. And basically, Jeffrey was inviting him to the island, and Elon had talked about going down to the islands in that area, but he really only wanted to party when he was down there. He was able to kind of escape his whatever, you call what he has as a family, even back then.
Right.
And and but he was adamant in the email to some extent about if he goes to Jeffrey Epstein's island, that it wasn't just going to be some boring weekend. He wanted it to be a fun-filled adventure, so to say.
He didn't want just an orgy weekend. He wanted like a child sacrifice orgy weekend or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, that was a little dark.
No, but it's true, and I think it's a good point you brought that up. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's coming out that's very sensational, and some of it has already been proven. And I do my best to as soon as I get corrected information, even if I posted something, I will clarify. I did that today with the chicken baby picture that everybody, based off of redactions, assumed was a dead baby in between two chickens on a table on a cutting board.
Chicken rat fuckery.
Yeah, well, chicken rat fuckery, and the thing is that, but why did they redact it the way that they did, in a way that would create that sensationalism? That's a question I have as well. Is because there's plenty of ways that they could have redacted that picture that would leave enough question as to, we're not sure what it is, so let's not jump to conclusions. But they redacted
hold on. Explain the photo. Describe the photo.
Okay, so this is a picture of like a counter, a wooden counter, but it looks like almost a chopping board, a large chopping board. And it's got two plucked chickens on it. And, I think it's pretty obvious the difference between chickens and turkeys, because I think turkeys are much darker, when they're naked like that, when they're before prepping. So these look like plucked chickens, very large plucked chickens. And then there's an object that you can't really tell in the middle that had been blocked by two black boxes. Okay. And what you could see, and I didn't even catch the second part I'll talk about until later, after I actually posted the picture, was you could see on the top of the second upper black box that was over more on the right of the picture, you could see a little bit of hair, like what looked like human hair at the top of that. So the speculation, and not just from me, from tons of people online, was that was a child. That was a baby between two chickens. It made sense based off the size. And, so it's a horrific scene, a sickening scene, something that will garner tremendous emotions from people if they see it and they view it that way. So why did they get redacted that way? When I posted the picture, I actually redacted it a little more so that you didn't even see the top of the hairline there, because I just basically said I'm not going to post it as it was originally posted, because I feel it's just enough for people to kind of come to their own conclusion about what they believe this is based upon what they see. Fortunately, I've got a great amount of followers, which I gained, I think it's 900 in the last 24 hours again.
People were digging the chicken pic.
And somebody sent me, they had found somehow the actual unredacted picture online of that. And I was terrified when they first sent it to me, because I was like, oh my God, I don't want to see that. But before we get to that, somebody did send to me, and they had circled in the picture. When you look at the two black boxes, the box on the bottom left or lower left part of the picture, at the corner of that black box on the top left corner of that box, just above that, you could see a foot and a leg. This was in the original unredacted version, which the odd thing about that is it didn't look like a baby's leg, though. A
Right.
baby's leg is very identifiable, but it still was a foot and a leg. And at first glance, you don't really catch it. I didn't. That's before I posted it, because I would have actually redacted that off too myself. But somebody then sent me the actual original picture, which it turns out it was like an art thing.
That was that spirit cooking with Abramovich.
Yeah, and it wasn't a like a real true to size comparison, because what was in the middle between the two chickens was a life-size man with his legs up in somewhat
Like
of
a
a fetal
yeah.
position, and
Naked,
yeah,
butthole
naked,
all in the air.
butthole and everything in the air, naked
Balls just.
yeah. But you could see his hairy legs and his hairy arms and everything, and you could see this was a full-grown male. And then somebody within my group actually did post that picture later and thanked me for having found it through one of my followers, because we felt it was important to help people understand, when you see this picture, this is the actual context of the picture. It's not as horrifying as they seem to want us to believe. It's still shocking and
Okay,
ridiculous.
do you want to know my theory, Tony?
Sure.
When I first fucking saw that picture, I was like, obviously, what the fuck? But I was like, is that Peter Thiel? So my theory is they put those extra boxes there so we wouldn't think it was Peter Thiel, because this buttery man chicken is like, he looks real sweaty. I'm just gonna say it, and real white, and it just his head kind of looked like Peter Thiel, so that could be a reason for those extra boxes. Just saying.
Well, I'll take a close look, because when you mentioned that to me earlier today, I was like, there is a possibility, but it would be interesting. And let's stop right here and make a very clear point to everyone, as well as the DOJ and all these people that redacted all of this stuff saw the original versions of this. They know who these people are. They know who these emails are to and from. They know everybody that's in these pictures that they've taken faces out of, and everything else. Dan Bongino, left to the FBI because of it.
That is the evidence. That's all the evidence you need that shit is fucked up. And then didn't Todd Blanche, when he was doing that press conference, talk about how he left out the child murder?
I think so, yeah.
They're like, don't worry, we left those out, which just proves that the snuff videos are in there.
Well, exactly. And they've seen it. So, one, what is the ass dragging when it comes to releasing these files? The excuses that they continue to make and everything else. If they have a snuff film that, of course, I don't want to see, you don't want to see, nobody should want to see those films. But they should acknowledge we have these films that depict these incidents occurring. involving these people here that we're going to list that we can tell exactly who they are,
Right.
and that's how it should be presented to America. But in terms of just morality and general safety, we aren't going to share them with you because we know nobody needs to see this stuff. You don't need to see the evidence to believe it. And they've taught everybody otherwise. Like, literally, it almost needs to happen in front of their face. And I guarantee you they'll still say, that's not
AI.
real. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, but honestly, I feel like it might shatter their psyche to believe that about their dear God leader.
Well, and that's what we need to also think about too. Is that we've talked about what are we doing to plan for the inevitable when all these things do kind of happen? We're able to find a way to fix this as peacefully as possible. Everybody wants to come at me today. It happened all day long. Oh, are you trying to cause an insurrection? Are you? No, you can look at my feed. I've talked about holding Biden accountable, holding other people accountable for their roles. I'm not saying that Biden was a pedophile, even though they want to say that. But we won't get into all of that. But
They'll use Ashley Biden's diary that was
yes.
stolen, or Hunter Biden's laptop that was by a computer fixer that had one eyeball or was blind or some shit. And
Exactly.
Rudy Giuliani had it. So, like, shut up. They're like,
Oh,
that's evidence. That is fucking evidence. But these actual FBI files and videos and photos are not.
well, they'll only believe dear leader and the narratives that they're told on Fox News and OAN and Newsmax and everything else because that's literally what they've been programmed to believe, and it falls into their comfort zone of rage. They almost thrive off of this rage. I mean, the texts I was getting today, or the comments I was getting today from all these people, it's obvious they're not all paid trolls. I mean, you have to understand that
Yeah.
there are still a good amount of crazy ass MAGA people
Your
that are
weird
on
fucking
Twitter.
cousin that
Yeah,
grew up in
yeah,
a trailer park that
yep.
thinks that Elon Musk is sending him a Cybertruck.
Exactly. And they're just spewing the same old narrative because they
Over and
don't
over.
over and over because that's all they know. That's what they've been programmed to say, and they have no critical thinking skills whatsoever anymore.
Well,
So
you know what though? This is hopeful though because Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, that's his name,
mhm,
Theo Vaughn, uh, and there was one other gal or one other guy. I mean, I can't remember, but they're all kind of like the reason Trump like fucking got elected,
mhm,
for all those like independent voters, and every single one of them are like the ICE thing. They don't like that
mhm.
and the Epstein stuff. They all three of them have been like, okay, so they're the pedophiles, So that is hopeful.
It is, and I think it's important that we allow them to make that transition accordingly, but hold their feet to the fire. Anybody that has the opportunity to engage with them, whether it be go on their shows, their podcasts or whatever, needs to find a way to embrace their newfound clarity.
Bernie Sanders did. I heard he was on Theo Vaughn's, and it was funny because Theo Vaughn was like, some authoritarian things are good, is what he said. And Bernie Sanders was like, no, none of them are. And he's like, well, like how we can make a decision. He's like, okay, good decision making skills are good. Authoritarianism is never good. And he was like, yeah, that's what I actually meant to say. That's what I meant to say. And I was
Well,
like, oh my God, millions of people are listening to this fucking idiot with a mullet.
yeah. Well, and you're right. I mean, and that's good that Bernie did that. I'm not a huge fan of Bernie, but I think it's important that at least he can redeem himself by making that having that effect on a show like that because Bernie does have a following on the left side of things,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people don't understand what his role has been in all of this, and I won't go into all of that. And he does still lean on the right side of things in terms the correct side of things.
Mm-hmm.
His motives, his actions always don't align up accordingly, and his embracing his own role hasn't quite been sufficient enough for me as far as I'm concerned, given what we now know. But
Right.
I appreciate that he's able to do that and can do that. So I will, embrace him a little more with understanding that he's at least doing those types of things in those high profile contexts because he has access to that.
Yeah,
And
no, it was a good conversation, and I'm glad that he is willing to do that. Because sometimes I feel like people get mad when they go on shows like that, and I'm like,
Mhm.
no, you have that's good.
Well, yeah, and I think Joe Rogan. He's kind of flip flopper to me. He
Totally,
kind of
he's
just kind of
whoever's paying
yeah,
him the most. Come on.
exactly. And so I have a hard time with Joe because I just don't feel like he's still being genuine to the American people. I think he's still kind of riding that wave of who's going to pay me the most and what's going to get me the most views and continue whatever I'm doing as long as possible.
Well,
Uh,
my thing is he's just not like smart, and then all these people are listening to him like he's
mhm.
smart.
Yes, yes.
I'm so confused. Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about specific? I mean, there's a thousand things, but
Yeah, I mean, there's a thousand things, but I think the keys that we've talked about is one is the clarity people need to have about the relationship that Donald and Melania Trump have had for decades directly with Epstein and Ghislaine. Regardless of where we are right now, what happened to Epstein, what's happening to Ghislaine. I mean, she's sitting in Club Fed. I mean, literally, it's illegal for her to be where she's at right now.
yep.
And it's unprecedented for someone with the charges that she's had to have been sent illegally to such a cushy prison. And Jeffrey Epstein was in prison the first time, and we talked about this earlier too. Uh, when he got out, he was embraced by high society like he had just been on a vacation somewhere. It had nothing, people did not shun him. They still embraced him again and just welcomed him back into all the society and did all the things again. And, a lot of the FBI information that's out there prior to, these new releases, stuff that's been out there's years, when you look at some of that FBI information, those investigations and the documents attached to those investigations were occurring in 2010, 2011, which was after he had served his sentence
Right.
because they would still thought he was doing those things again. We all know he was doing those things again. So where's the gap now between 29 when he was in prison, or 2009 when he was in prison, to 2019 when he died? I mean, you look at these emails, and in May of 2019, he's still communicating directly with Bannon, who's always been in Trump's circle, uh, directly with other high profile people who are in Trump's circle, who are in our government, like Lutnick and various people. And Epstein was in communication with these people directly leading up to the day he was arrested. So, yes, I would. Let me be honest about the whole Epstein death thing, how I feel about it. I think it's more likely that he either was murdered
Yeah.
by Trump because he just
Yeah.
knows way too much.
Too much.
I've shown in these emails that have been released that Epstein knew Trump better than anybody else. He knew exactly how Trump operated, how he did his business as a con man, how he did everything that he did, and it really lays it out in a very simple way, better than anybody else can explain how he's gotten where he's at. Epstein himself is the one that did that, and I could see where Trump. Um, could have feared that once he saw this information that was brought in, and these emails and all the stuff that were required. And I think to some extent, whether it be the Qatari jet, which I posted about, in 2012,
Yes.
Jeffrey Epstein, there's an email where Jeffrey Epstein had sent to a Qatari official, royal, I don't know exactly what it is, in an attempt to get them to buy one of his large Boeing jets that he owned. Or maybe it might not
Mm-hmm.
even been his jet. It may have been for somebody else. And that had fallen through. They had already told him no. But in a last ditch effort, this shows him laying out his still last proposal for them to buy the jet and who he had lined up as people to fly this jet for them. But ultimately, they turned him down, so they did not buy that jet. They bought another Boeing jet, one of the giant Boeing luxury jets in 2012. And that jet that they did buy in 2012 was the jet that they just gifted to Donald Trump.
God.
And we're spending $1 billion of our tax money to retrofit it to Air Force One. And if, in fact, Trump just does what is supposed to happen and stays in office until the end of his term and leaves regardless because he can't run another term based off of the Constitution, he will be granted that jet from the I think it's the Defense Department who gained it as a workaround. With this $1 billion upgrade, which will be brand new at that time because it's going to take them until the end of Trump's term to complete it. So we're spending $1 billion to give, even if Trump does leave the presidency, a jet that was gifted from them. So my thought, and there's a couple other indications that I've seen in these emails that tell me this on a couple other things, is the pettiness of Donald Trump and his need for revenge on people actually really drives his actions. And I think his desire for that Qatari jet kind of swirled around his learning this information about Epstein being involved in the purchase of that other jet. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's other indications of things that in these emails that show Trump's actions were responses to information he probably gained when his DOJ raided Epstein's homes
Right.
and acquired all this information. And then as Trump, I can imagine, just like with the Mar-a-Lago files that he took, I can imagine Trump sitting in his diaper with no pants on the floor of his bedroom, not Melania's bedroom, because the emails indicate that they don't actually share bedrooms. That's clear now. And it looks like Melania may actually have her boyfriend sometimes over in that bedroom, because the email does show Epstein talking about an article with somebody that was going to come out back in 2017 about Melania's boyfriend that I think they either squashed or it was kind of pushed by the wayside. Americans didn't really see it.
Yeah.
But I can see Trump with crayons, or I'm sorry, with his Sharpie, sitting
And his
on the
tiny
floor,
hands.
like a baby in his diaper, ruffling through these boxes, because the documents indictment actually talks about him going through those boxes, to the extent that in the documents indictment, Trump asked his assistant Oliveira to get new lids for the boxes because he didn't want to turn in any boxes that had all of his writing on them, his notebook. So come on, people. I mean, how much does it take for you to realize what the fuck is going on here? And I could see Trump doing that the same way with all of these Epstein files, sitting in the White House in his underwear. He didn't ever show up to work. I mean, it's a known fact he didn't show up till 1 or noon every day during his first presidency. And then he was out golfing the majority, a full year of his first presidency anyway. And sitting in his diaper, ruffling through all these Epstein files that his people brought to him, just trying to soak in that information and coming up with a petty, vengeful plan against Epstein and the American people.
Because he fucked kids.
Because he fucked kids. Yep. And plenty of other people
Icky.
did too. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
dude. Yeah, pitchforks are ready.
Get ready. Change those protest signs. Pitchforks.
Yeah.
Pitchforks.
Yeah, yeah. They're babies in these emails. Icky. Pizzagate 2.0.
Well, and we've even talked about that. Pizzagate is, this was this projection that they had
Right.
created, and this hyperbolic set of information that was created to direct it towards the other side in a way that almost desensitized us for the inevitable future they knew that would likely come out where they were
Right.
implicated in these behaviors. I mean, cannibalism as well. These emails show direct incidences of cannibalism.
Yeah, torture and cannibalism, and talking about really enjoying torture.
We need to require that these islands, not just the one island, but these islands and the islands owned by his cronies, like David Copperfield and the magician, he also owns islands in that area as well. They all
There are
need
dead
to,
bodies on those
yeah, they
islands.
need to comb those islands with a fine-tuned brush and
Mhm.
sonar and radar and everything else, and find any dead body that they can come up with. Go to all of Trump's properties and do the same. There's a property in Florida that he won't give up. It's like swampland
Yep.
that has zero value. To me, that's a dumping ground. I have indications from an insider who's told me
Mhm.
about dumping grounds.
Mhm.
Somebody who I haven't even talked about on Twitter very much. I briefly had mentioned this person once or twice. You know more about it than
Mhm.
anybody does, and
Mhm.
you know they very clearly said that they were aware of dropping spots, and they weren't necessarily the farms. This didn't happen on the farms. What would happen is these people, these bodies would be taken from the location that it occurred at, often these farms or wherever else, and they'd be flown in helicopter
Mhm.
to the drop spots. Maybe in
Mhm.
Florida, in this case that I was aware of. Maybe in Missouri, in the Ozark, where you in various areas. Or maybe in New Mexico, Epstein's ranch,
Mhm.
and and this is where we can give some validity to the fact that uh, Sasha Barrow's adopted father, who abused him, according to his interview,
Mhm.
was a helicopter pilot.
Right.
So that there's some credibility there, and my source has also indicated that because it was thought that they were dead, was removed from where they were and dropped, and that occurred on a helicopter, and they were actually able to escape from where they were dropped.
That's
And
so crazy.
it is crazy, and there's so much out there that is horrific. It's sensational. It's very hard to believe, but we need to hunker down. We need to set aside some emotion and refocus that emotion to anger. That's focused in a way that's going to help us do the things that are going to protect us, protect our loved ones, protect our friends, protect our community, and protect our nation.
And if you don't even know that this is going on, then you can't do that.
Yep. And we're not going to, I can sit down and talk to you for probably 24 hours straight and tell you a whole bunch of shit you don't know. But I don't need to do that. I just want you to understand the simplest. I'll let your own brain put the rest of it together.
Well, and also, if you don't need to know that stuff to know that you need to do something, that's also a thing.
Yeah,
You
I
know what I'm
agree.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
there is no need to be weird like us and comb through these nasty shits, okay? But so we're doing it. Like, we can give you a little condensed version, But it's going on. You have to protect your children, and if you don't know what's going on, you can't do it. You can't do that.
Yeah. So, no, and that I think that's the key to this call today, this talk today,
Mhm.
is just,
Mhm.
simplifying things in a way that people understand, that we're not trying to you know, throw things in front of people that they can't handle. No, we're not throwing lies out there. We're just helping people see basic, undeniable facts so that they can understand where they need to be when things start to get bad. And all
Yeah.
that is are you going to be right or are you going to be wrong?
Yeah, which side of history are you going to be on? And I know I'm making sure my kids know I was on the good side as
Well,
I'm marching to camp.
I was going to, I don't know if you saw this, but the last thing I'll say is, my buddy Ed Opperman, he
Mhm.
posted something today, and he had posted about one of the emails that came out about Rudy Giuliani and his
Mhm.
involvement with Epstein. And it was an email between Rudy Giuliani and Epstein directly, which is a nice, fun connection that we never really thought about. And
Ugh,
I
bleh.
had commented, and I even tagged, even though I'm blocked by this person. I love Elon's new Twitter for that sense. Is I was still able to tag my buddy Allison. If you're listening, girl,
Yes.
if you're listening,
Hey.
hey. And I said, I wonder what she has to say about her good friend Rudy Giuliani here.
Rudy.
I'm sure she'll just spew the normal nonsense that she always does, and then probably try to dox me.
Well, No one cares, Allison. No one cares.
I did have one MAGA in Massachusetts today that I was going back and forth with that basically was threatening me. Did a call out to my friends and I said, "Hey, you know what to do with this guy. Let's get him out of here." And he even was saying that by the end of the day he'll have my home address and I'll be taken care of. So I did have somebody also send me the police information for his local PD to maybe make a call and tell them, hey, this I'm getting this information, these threats from this guy, just in case he's already done it before, so that they can handle it accordingly.
Right.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
this
Yeah,
is
no, that's got to keep yourself safe. Thanks for putting
yeah,
yourself out there.
yeah. I mean, I'm prepared.
Yeah,
That we're not. It's not just that side that believes in the Second Amendment.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
They seem to be under some impression that
You know
the
what?
only
I did
people.
not have on my bingo card the left capturing 2A. Okay. I'm just saying. Okay. All right. Well, we covered a lot of ground there. There's a
Yeah.
lot of emails. But yeah, just it was good to talk to you, Tony. I'm glad you're feeling good.
Thank you.
Well, next time we talk, hopefully Lisa will be off work so she can chime in. But yeah, thanks for joining us on the While We Still Can podcast. Thanks for joining Tony, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. Bye.